In this video, we're talking about company culture and navigating the people agenda.
Welcome to ProfileTree TV, and today we're joined by Cathy, who's going to talk to us about company culture and HR. Do you mind introducing yourself for the audience?
Yep, certainly. My name is Cathy Doherty and I have my own consultancy called Practical People Solutions Ltd.
Excellent. And we've had the pleasure of working with you over the last couple of months.
We have indeed.
You've helped us on a lot of in-house HR, so thank you very much for that. It was an excellent experience, and very happy to have you here today and coming along to share some more of your experience with ourselves and the audience. So we're going to talk about company culture. So the first question, the big question, what is company culture?
Okay. It's a term that's bounded around a lot, and I don't think people necessarily understand what it is when it's working well. They understand when things go wrong. You know, you'll have heard all the headlines, things like Volkswagen, the culture of messing around with various things, and corporate scandals and that type of thing. And then company culture term is bounded around. So what, in essence, company culture is, it's your business's personality. It's how people talk about your business, and it's how your people, your employees, get on with the day-to-day when you're not around. I often will ask a business to pause and think about their business's personality. Really think about its components, and then think, would you introduce that personality to your mum? Would you bring home that personality with pride and say, Mum, look, this is my business? If you wouldn't, and whether it's a definite no, there's work to be done. If there's an initial pause going, maybe with a bit of work, a bit of smoothing around the edges, then yeah, there's still something to do. Very few businesses would actually say, yes, I'm really happy with where my business is. There's always something to do.
And would every type of business have a company culture? I'm thinking of a self-employed or solopreneur, or one or two people company, through to the big, obviously, the corporates.
Your company will have a culture whether you influence it or not.
Wow.
So if you don't influence the culture, one will build and establish itself. And the more people you bring in, the more that will evolve. It will evolve no matter what. So as a business owner, you want to be the one directing how that grows. It's your business after all. It's your reputation, and you almost want your people to feel the same way, that it's part of their business, it's part of who they are, and they care enough that all of these things matter. And when you have that in the workplace, it makes life an awful lot easier.
Company culture then, habits that fall in the daily routine that are checked or allowed or not allowed can form then part of the culture. Is that?
So your culture can be made up of a number of components. So you will have your leadership, and leadership isn't necessarily the people who are in the most senior positions. You can have somebody who is maybe on a reception area, or who leads a team, who isn't necessarily a director, who has leadership skills, and they are ones that you want to foster because you want that ownership of the business. You would ideally want to have a culture where people can feel free to innovate and to make mistakes, and there isn't a blame culture, but one that actually people learn from their mistakes. Because all the great innovative companies out there, you don't innovate by doing the same things over and over again. And because something works, that's what you stick to. You don't grow that way. And as a business owner, you can't do it all yourself. If you have ambitions to grow, you can't do it yourself. You need strong people around you. You need people who are great at the things that you're not. And also you need people who are even better than you at what you're good at. Because ultimately, as your business grows, you as the business owner will be doing different things. So you need that strong team around you who can then take this on board, and then you then become more the captain of the ship, where you're providing the direction, you're setting the route map as to where you'd love them to go. Everybody feeds into that. You listen to everyone's opinions as well, and everyone takes ownership of that business. And it doesn't have to be just the directors around the table or just your most senior managers. Quite often when it is just senior management who are seen to take charge, great people that you've brought into the business who aren't managers will soon become disaffected if they don't have the ability to make decisions. There's no point hiring great people if you're not actually going to let them use their talents, use their abilities. There's no point hiring somebody who's incredibly capable and saying, well, actually, you can only use the little finger on your left hand because we don't want you using everything else, because that doesn't work for us. You know, there's no business sense in that, and it's an awful lot of money to be sitting there and not being used. Then you have, especially in very competitive marketplaces, there's business reputation. Where you want to be the company that people want to work for. Great people will always find work. They will always find a job. They will always have a career. You want the great people to be working with you. You don't want them working with your competitor. So I remember growing up, my dad started his financial services firm from my dining room, and I always remember when I was working with him and running the business with him, there was a member of his staff that had left and had been offered a bigger, shinier, salary package and all of that. And within 6 months, they were back asking to come back. And it was because of the environment, because of the culture, because of that feeling that they were part of a family, that they were an individual, and they were recognised for the whole person that they were, not just the particular skill set that they could deliver on. And that's what you want as a business. You want the people who can command the big salaries if they really wanted to want to work with you and to help your business thrive. Because before too long, if your business is thriving, you may well be able to offer them the bigger packages, ultimately. But it's not anyone who kind of thinks that it's all just about offering more money misses out on actually on the culture piece. And it's that culture, that environment that you create, that people are empowered to do their job. And when it comes to empowerment and delegation, usually it's more of a direction, go do this is your to-do list. True empowerment comes with full delegation, which is full conversations, discussing, what needs to be done, what their input's going to be, and also asking your member of staff, well, what do they think? How can they contribute to it? It's not giving them a step-by-step of what to do, but it's helping guide them through it. Because that way your team then learn. And if your team isn't learning and just doing, they're no more than machines. And there's enough artificial intelligence and augmented reality coming along that you need people who can think for themselves. You need people who can analyse, critically think, can add that human element into it. If you don't foster that, they will go somewhere else that does. And then you need to be having those honest conversations with people as well, being able to be open and honest. And that is also the business owner being able to listen to people being honest with them, not surrounding themselves with a bunch of yes people who tell them what they want to hear. If you have a room if your team is filled with people like you, who think the same way, who have the same attitude and tell you what you want to hear, that might be nice for your ego.
But not for the business.
But not for the business. If anyone who runs a business, who owns a business, is in it to be successful, to be in it for the long run, to enjoy their lives, to be in charge of their own destiny. And they need to foster that environment. They need to foster that within their people as well. Anyone who has been through, say, a redundancy, more often than not, it was poor communication, it was all the negative things, and it was because they felt that it was being done to them.
Yeah.
And anyone who's been through the likes of disciplinaries, all the harder side of the environment of the workplace, it always feels like something's being done to them. But everybody has a choice. And when it comes to even the tougher things in the workplace, if you have that culture and that environment of trust, then it's easier to have those difficult conversations because it's on a basis of trust. It's on a basis of respect. That you can probably get away with being tougher than you would do if you don't have a trusted, established relationship there.
Which actually does make sense. So as a business owner, I'm thinking I have to worry about sales and customers, and now you're telling me I need to look after my culture as well. It's probably, you're trying to convince me it's more important.
If you don't look after your people, they won't look after your customers.
Okay, so very good. That's fairness. As you're talking through, I'm going, I have a bit more work to do. So
you look after your people, and it will come out naturally that they recognise the importance of your customers to your business because they matter to you.
Yeah, of course.
And it's not just about the customers.
No, this was really people first, and everything looks after itself. All being well. So we've talked. You've given me some really good guidance there. Would you have examples of good or bad or what is? I'm just trying to visualize company culture. Is it back to we talked about Volkswagen? We're not mentioning too many. It's okay. They'll not be watching this probably.
Company scandals.
Stuff. So yeah, company scandals. So there's loads of company scandals. So that would be an example of a bad company culture where the wrong mindset and morals are displayed by the leadership team and the team itself.
How the senior management, say, in a business behaves reinforces behaviours. So if, say, for example, senior management then influence, send out a memo and say, this is how we're going to behave. We're going to respect everybody. If you're in a particularly bad mood, just kind of take a breath, don't react. But yet the senior management, just carries on and just totally disregards that memo. Then it's like, well, for one, the whole idea of respect in the workplace doesn't mean anything. It's a piece of paper, which quite often when companies pull together values and how our culture is going to be, it's stuck on a wall, it's stuck on a website, and that's the only place it belongs, because it never is actually part of the workplace. The leadership, the senior management of the business does set the tone. They set what is acceptable. They're the embodiment of those values, and each company will have its own values depending on what's important to them. Some it will be professionalism, others it'll be integrity, but some will be more specific about their particular industry, and they'll maybe pick out values and cultures that are lacking in their industry, or are particularly important for their industry, say in the care sector. It's caring and nurturing, supportive to our clients or customers, or the whole point of having a company values and culture is that it's yours. Don't just do like a Google search and kind of say, oh, they're doing it, that's what I'll do. Because that means nothing. The culture is in the heart of the people. It's in the heart of your business. It is that beating heart, and that's why. It's, as I say, your company has a culture, but is it the culture that you want, or is it the culture that's going to be successful for your business in the long run, or is it just getting you short-term wins right now, and your head's down, you're getting on with things because you just don't have time to do this, but you do need to pause, take a breath, take a step back and assess where you are, because otherwise 2-3 years down the line, who knows where we're going to be, and it's almost like a runaway train at that point. The business is running away off, and how much influence do you really have over it?
And so if you go into a company, and I know you go into a lot of businesses, big and small, when you look at the operation, is there things that you look out for in culture? How do you identify the culture? So if I'm a business owner, I've never even thought of the company culture. I walk in and I don't see culture everywhere. How do I identify what our culture is?
You'll see it by how your people interact with each other.
Gotcha.
Culture is very much of the human element. You know, it's the living, breathing human part of it. And it's how people interact with each other. It's how your people treat your customers. It's how your customers talk about your business. You know, if you were to ask for testimonials, or they were to give reviews, you'll notice themes coming. And you'll identify themes and patterns, and then you start thinking, are those the themes and patterns I want? Or are they the patterns that I have? So if they're not the ones I want, how do I get those? And as a business owner, you cannot do that by yourself. If you want to improve your company culture, you have to do it with your people. They have to be part of it, because they are it. It's not just you. They are it, and they will take their lead from you as the business owner. So that's why, I mean, I often describe as well when I was working in human resources departments, that we are the living, breathing embodiment of the company values. So if we have to live and breathe them, we have to demonstrate them every day, because if we don't, then they're worth nothing. So we have to be the ones that support the business. And so that's what I do with my clients. It can be, I work at my client's own pace. It depends on where they are in their journey. And sometimes it's a slow, steady approach. Sometimes they've already been working on it, or they're already aware that they need to do, quite often they know they need to do something. They just don't know what and how. And it's a journey. And for anything to really stick, as opposed to a novelty, or we're going to do this, engagement program, and this month is going to be brilliant, then next month we're back to how we were 2 months ago.
I understand. So from what I understand, it need not be hard to change company culture, but you have to be consistent and really want to change it, and it's not going to be done in 1 week or 2 weeks, but you need to work at it forever, basically.
You work at it, you have your plan, you work at it, you're consistent with your approach, you keep plugging away. It's practice, 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 and then before long, it's like riding a bike. You're practicing and practicing, and it's hard and it's keeping your balance, and then before you know it, you're cycling, and it's working by itself, and then it's much easier at that point. But it's the starting off is always the difficult. There will be people in an organisation who embrace it fully and go, fantastic. There will be some who are more cynical because they've been through it before, either with you or with another business. Everybody who comes into a business brings their own baggage, and that isn't necessarily a reflection of your relationship with your people. It's their previous relationships. You know how a company has dealt with it before, whether it's a case of, oh yeah, I've been through that before, nothing ever really changes. And that's then when it's so important to be consistent and to show actually we mean it.
Of course, yeah, because we're doing a lot of work for nothing then if you just go and don't maintain it. I guess company culture has changed a lot over the last couple of years, or 10, 20, 30 years. Is there more of a focus on this today, do you think?
I think the focus has come as a result of scandals. As a result of it being difficult to find people with the right skills. And you might find people with the right skills, but they don't necessarily have the right attitude. So it's a competitive market out there in the sense that the good people will find work. And it's become more of a necessity than it has been in the past. And I think that also reflects in terms of just generally in society, the terms of diversity. That there are more diverse people in the workplace. It's just everybody doesn't all look the same, behaves the same way. The diversity is increasing, and I think the next major phase in terms of companies coming to terms with their cultural environment is neural diversity. So it's diversity of thinking, and it's not necessarily on an autism level. It's including those with autism, but it's also just people who think differently.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what you want in your teams.
Definitely.
You know, you want that diversity. You want the people who also say, who disagree with you. And it's always helpful to have a naysayer in there, because they're the ones that challenge you. They're the ones that actually make you almost make your business case behind things to really think it through. You know,
I can definitely see that, and having a different personality is incredible in a team, because you do get the ultimate mix, I think.
Yeah.
So then different industries. So I'm thinking, you know, especially thinking tech straight away, and you'd think of the Googleplex and the Facebooks and the LinkedIn and all these companies who have, you walk into the building, it's like amazing, and they've got the sleep pod and they've got the chefs, and it's like wow. So they have, maybe that's culture, incredible culture, I guess, maybe not, still under pressure, I'm sure. Is that they're not, like, I guess I'm thinking, how does a manufacturing company compete with that? Is it a level playing field? What could a company do?
Company culture doesn't actually cost any money.
Well, okay, so wrong perception. Very good.
So you've seen even with Google and the walkout recently of how they treat women, and you know, having all nice shiny gadgets and toys
Still
doesn't make culture.
Yeah.
You know, culture is the people, and it's that very personal human level. That's the culture. And I've always said that if you have to spend an awful lot of money on employee engagement programs and shiny things and all these, and you've still got problems in the workplace, you know, you're not actually addressing. You're trying to stick a plaster over it. You're not actually addressing the issues. Proper engagement, which is natural within your business and the culture of the business, which is your thank yous, it's your well dones, it's your I value your opinion. Tell me about that. What do you think? How do you think that can be improved? You know, give me, if I could change one thing tomorrow, you know, that would make your life easier, what would that be? Or if you could change something tomorrow, or if you know, that's your culture. Yeah. You know, where people are actually involved in it. Anyone who kind of says, oh, we have to have a massive budget, you know, for engagement and all, you don't. You know, it's your day-to-day interactions, but being strategic about it, you know, really planning it through, going, okay, how do I get that culture? You know, how do I get the environment that I would bring my family into? You know, I would bring my mum into this business, and I would quite happily let her sit in the office and not tell anybody she was my mum, you know, and then meet with her afterwards and say, you know, well, what do you think? And have no fears, you know, about what she would come back with. You know, that's your culture. And when you pick up the phone to your customers, you know, if you have an empowered workforce, if you have a team of employees who can deal with problems, aren't afraid to make mistakes or own up to mistakes and know how to fix problems, whenever your customers have complaints, they're much more adept at handling those. They don't have to keep running to ask for advice, because they are already building the skills, but they have the confidence that they know they can resolve issues, they can fix something, that they don't have to keep running and asking. And then it means then that people aren't tethered to each other. And one of the biggest challenges for a business owner is delegating decision making to your people.
You're killing me, are you?
I asked my dad when I was starting out, you know, what was the biggest challenge for him, and it was delegating decision making and trusting people, because I described the business as your baby. It's one of your children.
Handing over.
Yes.
And then checking back in.
And my dad's business, I always remember it was like a sibling. You know, we grew up with this other sibling in the family. And, you know, he's handing me FT articles at 14 and going, what do you think of that? People applying for jobs for the business. After the recruitment process, they'd come round to the house for a coffee and a chat, and they would meet my mum and I. And after they'd left, after a couple of hours of a conversation, Dad would bring my mum and I in and go, well, what did you think?
Amazing.
You know, excellent. So, and that was from childhood.
Yeah.
You know,
you're immersed in it from the early years.
Yeah.
Very interesting to see what you remember and the process. Incredible. Very interesting. You mentioned one thing there that you're saying it's strategic. You have to sit down and plan and think. So I'm thinking about our culture, and I'm sure many other people are as well. And I would call it organic, and it's happening itself. And I think that we are going in the right path. But actually, now you make me think that I should be strategic here, because are we really? We probably don't have a strategic plan around culture. It's happening, and organic is good, but maybe it's not the best way. So
I think a combination.
Gotcha.
You know, it will grow organically, but you've always got to keep an eye on it.
Yes, gotcha.
And
Just in case.
you have it in that the strategy comes as in, this is how I want it to look, and you let it grow organically. But you might just need to nip a few things here and there and just nudge it to make sure it doesn't spiral off in another direction. Cultures will grow organically. You know, they don't respond to dictatorships, because that's not the kind of culture that would work over here anyway. So that's why there's always the organic element, but it's that strategic in the sense that you have to be strategic about everything in your business anyway. And quite often the people bit is forgotten about in terms of part of business strategies. And that's when, you know, you need to keep that as it's the biggest factor. If you don't have the right people in, it doesn't matter what you've got in the rest of your business plan, you know. So that's what it is. It's letting it grow organically, but still that strategic overview of it.
Very good. I'm with you there, because you can see how it can actually change before your eyes in a few days.
And if you take your eye off the ball,
Yeah.
you know, and then you do make it, as I say, it's like riding the bike. You know, you then build the momentum, and that then becomes how we do things, but not in there's no flexibility here. It's actually, this is how we treat each other. This is how we treat our customers, our clients. This is what we do when there's a problem. You know, it's along those lines, as opposed to the steps we take when we're carrying out this role. Yeah. You know, it's that's not culture.
Gotcha.
You know.
Very clear. And leading by example, then that's
everybody leading by example.
Very good.
You
Everyone.
know. So that's the element of the culture. You know, how your team get on when you're not around. Yeah. You
Which
know.
is the critical part. Yes.
Yes.
And would you have the culture? Can you write it down? Is it something? It's not really. Is it? Is it, or a mix? That's
when potentially you can use it in your values. You know, you can use your values to capture that culture as a reminder, but also more to tell the outside world. It's not so much to tell the inside world, because the ideal should be that your values, your team go, well, duh.
Yeah.
You know, like going, yeah, I know that. Yeah. You know, it is very much a case of it's you advertising to the world and to your customers that when they do business with you, this is who they're dealing with. These are the people they're dealing with, because the old adage, you know, people do business with people. Yeah. You know, and as mentioned, you know, the increase of artificial intelligence and augmented realities and those sorts of things, that will become increasingly important for those added people connections. And not fostering that in your business is basically, you're just sabotaging your own business if you don't, which to me does not make any sense.
Wow, yeah, no, very. And even I'm thinking now, as you say, technology now, we spend more times looking at our screen and even remote working and liaising with people internationally with Skype and Zoom and all the other technology. Would that make it harder actually to have a good culture in a company?
I think it depends on what you do around those connections. If they're there to supplement the day-to-day business, then that's fine. But if they're the only way that you interact with people and you never have, you know, what they term the water cooler conversations, you know, where it's the chat over the photocopy, it's the chat making the cup of tea, the small talk, that is basically, human beings are inherently sociable creatures, and they need that social stimulus. And purely relying on just the technology side, and relying on that being your only interaction, people won't feel engaged and won't feel connected. And you know, there's no difference then to working to working to somebody on the other side of the world. Why should they work with you? They could work with someone else. You know, there's no sense of connection there. And so if you just rely on the technology and you don't build the connections, you're not likely to have the long-term working relationship. They're more than likely just to go with, you know, whoever, you know, is offering the best package, as opposed to they're not really part of a culture.
Very good. And is there companies, like, I'm just thinking again, like Apple, for example, we're talking about all this culture, and I know they've had, every company's had a wee little shake around that. But the culture in Apple, for example, as a company, would you regard that as quite strong and positive, or general?
Some things, yes, I think in terms of embracing their people's creativity, that's what's made the difference, you know, from, you know, when they were nearly a no longer business, when they were just on the old Macs, you know, and you had the leader with the vision, but then without the people around him to kind of to create that and make it reality, then they wouldn't be here. They wouldn't be who they are now. And you can see in terms of where they stagnate when the innovation, it's just more of the same. There's not really much innovation happening. And then their loyal followers then go, oh, well, there's not much of a change there, you know. So that's where the likes of curtailing innovation is not great for your business. It'll slow your business growth down. Not even necessarily your growth, but more your long-term survival. If you don't have people who can think for themselves and you let them be who they are, in that culture of trust, respect, you know, then you're going to lose them, or you're going to lose your business. You know, no business has a right to exist. You know,
True, yeah.
And as they say, no business, recognizing no business is too big to fail.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so without creativity, innovation, then you stagnate. And it doesn't have to be massive innovation either. It can just be doing something slightly different but better, you know, that makes a difference. And usually those ideas come from your people who are doing the work, who are having those interactions with people, with your customers. That's usually where the ideas are coming from. And that's why, by having that open conversation, and encouraging people to think for themselves, to innovate, to have, you know, to make mistakes. Obviously not mistakes that are going to be business critical and shut you down or cause, you know, serious issues, but to encourage that. You know, having even, you know, the almost like the idea of the whiteboard type thing where people can just stick down ideas as they occur to them.
Brilliant.
And then discussing them, you know, having a weekly conversation or a daily conversation, or when somebody sticks something up on the board going, hey, let's pause and think, you know, can we do this? Is this doable? You know, using the ideas, not just kind of not just people putting them up and nothing ever happening to them, because then if you don't do anything with those ideas, people will stop and they'll go, well, they never listened to me anyway. You know, so what's the point? And that's then when the disengagement kicks in, going, well, I'm not really feeling I'm doing anything in here, you know. So yeah.
Very interesting. So segue slightly. So we talked loads about company culture, then we also have company values. So that's then something that's different again from company culture? Company
values, they're the ones that I was saying that, you know, really capture the company culture. You know, that's the one where I said, you know, it's you use your company values to advertise who you are to the world, to potential customers, potential employees. Your values need to be the living, breathing, you know, you need to be able to see your values living and breathing in the business. Otherwise they are just wallpaper. And the number of organisations I've worked in with, you know, where they've said, oh, we've done all this on values, and, you know, you observe and you go, okay, I don't really see it in the workplace. and they've maybe spent thousands on this big program, and you're like, yeah,
Piece of paper.
you might as well just stick your money in the centre of the room and set fire to it.
Yeah.
You know, for all the good it did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whereas rather than actually going, let's just keep it simple.
Yeah.
Let's plan. Let's be a bit more strategic about it, and use the experience that we have in the business.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for sharing all your wealth of experience
Thank you.
and company culture today. I've learned a lot. I've a lot of more work to do. That's my weekend, sort of.
Start small on a journey. Don't get overwhelmed by it.
Exactly. No, good advice. So thank you very much. And if anyone had any questions on company culture or wanted to reach out to you for any help or guidance on HR, what's the best place for them to find you, or how can they get in touch?
If anybody has any queries to do with, it could be anything from establishing that company culture, changing what's already there, or it could be, you know, they know they need to do things better, and they've maybe had some support in the past, or they've never had any kind of support. Best way to get me is through LinkedIn.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you very much again today for all your time and advice. And that's us wrapping up today's video. Back tomorrow, all being well, from the Innovation Factory. And this has been Kieran from ProfileTree, your content marketing agency. Thank you.